All right, we're going to be starting from Letchieit Amud Beis, about 10 lines down. So, Nachama, we're bringing a raya from Torah Nevi'im and Ksuvim that Menen Letchieit Amud Beis. The Gemara keeps bringing rayas on and on and on, all kinds of different stories, entering the different Tzedukim and Minim. By the way, I saw, when we were talking last week, Minim and Tzedukim, I kept on changing back and forth. If you look in the Oz V'Hodar ones, the Oz V'Hodar Grada has the Nusach Tzedukim in the Gemara. Right? So Tzedukim were Yidden. Minim were could be stama because Tzedukim were from a gevissa kind of, or from a certain group. Yeah, that's what we spoke last week already. We mentioned that. That was from Antignos Tishteiche. There were Talmidim of Antignos Tishteiche with Tzadik and Baisis, which were Talmidim. So Hashem Shul Kol Tzarkan, they didn't have any context of what the Rebbe was talking about. So he said, "Al Tiyu Kavadim Sham Shebes Rabban Avol Kal Prasa." They said, "Oh, Elamai." Grad Shtims is everything we're going to be talking about in this parak altogether, because it goes like this. They said that if the whole point of Olam Hazeh is just to do mitzvahs in Olam Hazeh and there's no Olam Haba, right? So why should we do it? Right? He was telling them that you shouldn't do the mitzvahs for the schar, you should do the mitzvahs. Avad is Olam Haba. He was never machkash Olam Haba, the Rebbe. The Talmidim just assumed that Elamai there's no Olam Haba, right? So mainly that Shtim is very good in the Nusach in the Gemara of Tzedukim, because they're coming to argue on everything of Menen Letchieit Amud Beis, because they don't believe in Nitzchias. They don't believe in El Mabah. Only Torah Shebiksav. Take Torah Shebiksav literally.
If the whole thing is that there's no El Mabah, why do they care about Torah Shebiksav?
Because so that's an interesting question. Why do they care about Torah Shebiksav? So it could be that there were different parts and different groups held different things. It could be, I'll tell you, more of a out-of-the-box kind of terrorists that, they still felt bad, throwing everything in the garbage. They had to hold on to something, maybe, but they felt that there was still something that they should keep. Still, if a person had nothing in his life, so then it's very, very empty. So you have to have something. It doesn't have.
Make up something, some book, like
what?
Make up a book.
So I don't know. I don't know what their cheshbeinos were, why they decided to keep it. If you look,
the Quran.
Right, no, I don't know. I don't know what epis they decided to hold on to that. But it's interesting, because there are the Karoim. There's still a group of them. I was reading about the history of the Karoim recently. In Vilna, there's a big group of them. It's very interesting. There's still a small group of them. They had their rabbis, and they had their own Torah, and they had like their own Gemara type. Their own Torahs and own everything. They actually course them. No, that's something else. We're not getting into this now. Anyways, I'll go punum. So we have rayas. We'll talk about it a different time, not now. No, I just said like this. If Taka, it's true what they're writing in this Kol Kairei, that they take everything out that has anything to do with Olam Haba, Mashiach, Tchias HaMeisim, and any of these Ikrei Amuna of the Nitzchias of Klal Yisrael. Allegedly, that's what the problem is with this Chumash. Now, I know that they've been making in Eretz Yisrael, they made a rash about this Chumash for over a year ago, I believe. It's been going on for a while. I don't know anything about it. We read the same newspapers, I know that it's been going on in Eretz Yisrael for a long time. It's interesting. It looks like it's building up steam, this movement. I mean, one Kol Kairei is no better than the other, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's not Torah, it's not, Everybody always has an agenda. The question is if what the agenda is and where it's coming from. They claim this guy makes up midrashim and twists different things and takes things out of context. It doesn't necessarily mean he's a Russia. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to burn the sefer. I think it said in the Kol Kairei to what? Okay, it said in the Kol Kairei that you should burn the sefer.
No, it didn't say burn the sefer.
You didn't read the last line.
The last line said burn the sefer.
I said something about burning it.
No, it was saying someone else said.
Read it again. Read it again.
You should burn the sefer.
Look at it. Read it again. I'm not 100% sure. I'm 99.9% sure.
Always comes over Rashi Truth.
What? Yeah, so that's so a guy who's a kanoi on this topic will tell you that the reason why he was able to pull this off is really the reason how he was able to kri harayin into the Frum Tzibor is first he put out good things, and then he put out not good things, and everybody, his first thing was good, so Elamai, his second thing is going to be good, so then we could buy his second thing also. To me, I don't really care about this whole business. I'm not going to buy it. I was never going to buy it, and I don't have one, and I don't care about it. And the people that want to burn it, they should burn it. And if you don't want to burn it, don't burn it. Many times many times the reason where these kol kares come from is totally out of context. Also, you have to really know what's going on. If I'm a Rosh Hashiva and a guy says, this guy wrote a sefer that's full of kfira and full of hashchasa and all kinds of bad things. So if I have time, which if you're a Rosh Hashiva, hopefully you won't, right? So you won't have time to go through it, right? So if you see 2-3 things that you don't like in it, so maybe you'll write something about it. A smarter Rosh Hashiva will have somebody go through it, somebody that he trusts, go through the sefer to see that it actually has the issues that he's talking about. There's so many stories of people that wanted to get rid of other people and get rid of their svarim, that they have such terrible things in them, and then the people went through them and they saw there's nothing wrong with it. So what are you driving up to? What are you driving crazy for? A man trusts this to learn doesn't have time for these things. The person who's Isaac in Torah, in Avodah, in Yerushalayim, doesn't have time for these things. It's a bad sefer. Maybe there is an issue with the sefer. I don't know. I really don't care, but I don't know, right? We don't have to be busy with it. This is for the people who have a lot of time on their hands to make kol kares and to burn books. It doesn't come from such a great place. Now, even if it's the right thing, even if we should do it, but it's not coming from
So they ran out of garbage cans.
Yeah, it's you got to do something else. Fine. That's yeah. Avada. Shari Tshuva was written as a tshuva for the burning of the Rambam. Avada, 100%. Anyway, so we have that the meaning with the Tzedukim, Esram Gamliel, Minayin Shakosh Baruch Hu Mechayim Mesim, Omer Lahem and Aterim and Anavim and Aksum V'lei Kiblu Mimenu. They didn't want to be Makal from them. Why didn't want to be Makal from him? If he has a raya, so his raya is a good raya, right? The pshat is that they have an agenda, and their agenda doesn't stem with what Rav Gamliel is going to say, so they don't like it, right? Just to get back into what we were talking about now. So my ha'ara was like this. I want to speak something out. It's interesting because we have min haTorah, min hanavim, min haksuvim. If your raya from Chumash is good, why do you need to bring a raya from Nevi'im and Ksuvim? What's the matter with your raya from the Torah? L'chara pasha pshat is, and I said this before. L'chara pasha pshat is because this is such a big yisod and ikar and amuna that we have every single chelik of Tanakh supporting this yisod. Sai Torah, Sai Nevi'im, and Sai Ksuvim. But the way to understand that it's even better than this is because Loi harei haTorah karei hanavim, v'lei harei hanavim karei haksuvim, v'lei haksuvim karei hanavim. Each one is the Gevisa Madrega and brings out a certain Kvayt Shemayim that the other one doesn't necessarily have. Right? L'marshal, we said this before. And if you pay attention to the Siddur and Malchus, Zechariah, and Shefers, what we're saying, right? So the Gemara, we bring psukim from Torah, we bring psukim from Nevi'im, we bring psukim from Ksuvim. Vayis it's not enough. You have to take a look at the Sugya in Rosh Hashanah, but Vayis it's not enough to just bring psukim from Malchus from Chumash, and it's not enough to just bring psukim of Shefers from Navi, and it's not just enough to bring psukim of Zechariah from Ksuvim. We got to take everything. We got to bring out. We want to bring out the Kvayt Shemayim of Malchus, Zechariah, and Shefers from Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. Aram Gamliel is doing the exact same thing over here also. He wants to bring the Yesodus Hamuna, the Kvayt Shemayim. He wants to take it out of every single part of the Torah possible. Aside from Torah, aside from Nevi'im, and aside Ksuvim. So we ended off right before the punchline of this Gemara. Ad she'amar lahem mikra zeh. He said they were doicha, the tzedukkim were doicha all the rayas until he told them this pasuk. What's the pasuk? We say twice a day, at least twice a day. L'man yirbu yameichem yimei v'neichem al adam v'ashenishba Hashem la'veiseichem l'oses lahem. The drush is as follows: Lachem le'nemar ela lahem. It says lachem. Lachem means to you, directly to you. Lahem means to them. Who's them? Mikan l'tchiyas hamesim in HaTorah. So from here, it's a raya that Tchiyas HaMesim is min haTorah. How do we know that? Because it says to them, not to you. He's Moshe Rabbeinu, Akash Baruch Hu, Moshe Rabbeinu, talking to Klal Yisrael, and he's saying not to lachem, to you, but lahem, meaning to them, to the others. So what? So it's a raya that the others themselves will get up at Tchiyas HaMesim. V'yesh Omrim, the second punchline, min hamikra hazeh amar lahem, from a different pasuk. V'atam adveika b'Hashem Elokeichem chaim kol hamayim. That those that are davuk and Hashem Elokeichem, they're going to be living kulchem hayon. So there's a parenthesis here. I want to go through it and see. Yeah, parentheses, not parentheses. Let's see what's going on over here. Pshita, zog the parentheses. Pshita the chaim kulchem hayon. It's like Pashat. He's talking to a live audience. He's not talking to the cemetery. About he's talking to a live audience, right? Elo, zazak the Gemara, afilu b'yom shekala olam kula mesim, shekala olam kula mesim atem chayim. That even on a day where everybody's going to be dead, you will still be alive. So Mekan is the remez letchias hamesim. So that's the parentheses. Let's just finish up the Gemara. We'll get back to the parentheses, and then we'll go through what we need to see over here. Ma hayom kulchem kayomim, afla olam haba kulchem kayomim. Just like today, all of you standing here in front of Moshe Rabbeinu are all alive. Afla olam haba, so too all of you are going to be alive. So we're not talking about the chayim of everyday life. But just like today, all of you are alive, it says Vet Zayin, the day of Tchiyas HaMetzim, where all of you are going to be alive as well.
Doesn't Lashon Hayayim usually mean Lashon?
I don't know. Could be. It's kind of Hayayim we know refers to Rosh Hashanah, which can mean, if you think about what Rosh Hashanah means, the idea of Rosh Hashanah is from Bria Sa'olam till the Saif of all the Giluyim and all the Nitzchias and all the, Ad Saif Kol Hadiris until all the ultimate Kvay Shemayim is going to be brought out, 100%.
But he's saying that Afla Hava Kulchem Kayom Tchias Meis Heaven and Hava. What happens?
Oh. So this is a good question. It's like a grace of Machlekes Rishonim. Huh? Oh, you seem to know. I'm not sure myself.
That's what I was told.
You were told. Who told you? Don't tell me, but I'm saying. We'll talk. It's a Shaila. It's a big Machlekes Rishonim. And I want to get into it. In Mitzvah, we're going to see a little bit of it tonight. So let's just see Rashi, and then we'll get to the parentheses, the Marsha over here. So Chaim Kulchem Hayom. So like Kiblu Mimenu Ad She'omar Lahem, they weren't Makabel his teretz until he told them this raya. Chaim Kulchem Hayom. The Hayom Yusru. Why do you have to say Chaim Kulchem Hayom? The Hayom is extra word in the pasuk. The Matzil Mechlef Chaim Kulchem. That all of you are alive. Mat Hamad Lemer Hayom. So why do you have to tell me hayom? Ke hayom, just like today. Ma hayom kulchem kayomim. So too, l'olam haba, l'aseh lavoy, kulchem kayomim also. Kach shemati, so Rashi, that's what he heard. It's interesting, if you look in there's a pay over here from the Oiz V'Hada, it says a very interesting thing. But Perik Zeh, motzim mo'oid berashi teves kach shemati. Oberesh teves chavshin, which stands for kach shemati. In this parak of Chelek, we find a lot of times kach shemati. With first Sansino, Hanusach Reishin, Menira Dahin Rabbeinu Shmuel. That's Rashbam. Which is an inical Rashi. Rashbam, we know we have an Arbe Psachim, and we have an Bava Basra. Rabbeinu Shmaya, the Talmud of Rashi. Benishtabish B'dfuz Vinitzia. The Venice printing of the Gemara is a mistake. Haktamas had the Diktukei Sefer from Sanhedrin. This comes from the Diktukei Sefer from the beginning of Sanhedrin. The Diktukei Sefer fixes all the Nuschos, many things in this Oiz V'Hada Gemara. The Hagoy Setzion bring from the Diktukei Sefer. Very interesting where and what and how. He explains where he gets all the different Nuschos from. If you're busy with Nuschos, your main Sefer you should be focused on is the Diktukei Sefer. He helps you out with everything. Va'en el Omer Aleph Oiz Nun B'Shmoi Shemefakfek in Bechlal HaPirish Al Perek Chelek Humei Rashi. That he's mesupik if this whole Rashi on this parak is from Rashi altogether, which we mentioned way back in the day. That could be it's from a Talmud Rashi, and l'chara that's the parashas the way many people understand. Right? Take a look at what it says over here at the beginning. There's a nun over here. What does it say? The nun. Nira lamisha makar b'losha Rashi hakotzav ha'anoki shapirish perak chelek eina Rashi ela me'echad mitalmidov. Avama esa. But what could we do? Shahor Rama, the Yad Rama, hetek mimenu diburim shlema because al say Rabbeinu Shlema pirish. The Yad Rama goes very stark that this is Rabbeinu Shlema, which is Rashi, that he was mafarish. So, not that we know of, but he's not going to call the Talmud Rabbeinu Shlema.
Wait, but if this, let's say this is a Talmud, and he's quoting like the other Dukei Sefer that here, Reishin, why can't Reishin now mean Rabbeinu Shlema?
Because Rashi, right, so it's Taka Talmud Rashi, not a Rashi himself. Rashi's like a Rebbe.
Yeah, so. When he quotes it, he really is quoting Rashi. He also heard it.
I mean like that. It's Kenzain. I don't think Yad Ramah was the Talmud of Rashi. I'm just saying that. Right. And also you'll notice that there's no Taisus on this parak at all, right? Sometimes you have Taisus on the side. So that's where the Be'er Sheva comes in. The Tafkid of the Sefer Be'er Sheva, who's a Talmud of the Ramah, well, I mentioned this also, that he wrote like a Taisus, like very partial to questions, like basic partial to questions on the Gemara, and he's miyashiv, and he gets interested. He's a regular, he's Talmud of the Ramah, so he was at that Kufa, and he has a whole bunch of very interesting.
Did you say he wrote it like the same way Taisus wrote it?
It's something along those lines. I don't know what that means exactly, but that's that's what I saw. Agapan, we'll see. He has a kash over here, and we'll go through that. We'll go through what he says, and we'll explain it a bit. So, what's the story with this parentheses? Yeah, parentheses. In this parentheses, what's tutzachda? So the Marshal takes out this parentheses of Pshita Dechem Kol Chamayoim, and then also the old B'Ksav Yadis Yishonim and the old Ksav Yads, it doesn't have this nusach either, and that's why it's in parentheses. But the Marsha sounds like he has this girsa. The Kosav, and he writes that the pasuk is like this: because you are Tzveikim B'Hashem Alekeichem, which is Alekim Chayim. So because you're Dovuk in Hashem, so like the Chayim is contagious. So you're Dovuk in Hashem, so Hashem gives you Chayim. So you're going to have Chayim Nitzchiyim, and you're going to be Chayim v'Kayamim La'asid Lavai, and even after everybody's going to die, like this parenthesis says, so everybody's going to come alive. Now we'll see later that there's a Gemara that says that even the people that are alive, by Tchias HaMesim, they're going to die a little bit, then they're going to come alive again, because you have to experience Tchias HaMesim. Whenever there's a change in the world, everybody has to experience that. So Meila, you have to experience the Misa in order to be part of the Tchias HaMesim. Right? In Tchias HaMesim district's Parasha Yitzchak was the first one.
Also, you need the people that are going to die to die.
Well, that's what's happening also.
Wait, what about like Alionavi and Sarah Kosasher?
Yes, I don't know. Hopefully we'll get to clarify all these things.
No, because that means that everybody attacked is going to die. Even if they're alive, it's just them.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this Gemara before we go weiter. So it goes like this. Let's just read a few lines here in the Beersheva. So it goes like this. It happens to be that the Beersheva's name was Eilenberg. That's my Zaydi's name. Eilenberg. There's I think there's a town in Europe somewhere, Eilenberg also. But it's Ken Zayn. But that's probably where he came from. But I don't know. We come from Poland. I don't know exactly this, where he was from. He's from the Ramah. The Ramah is also from Poland, by the way. But he ended up being a Rav in Italy at some point also. Poland and Italy, no, the Beersheva. The question is, I want to try to, dig up some biographical information about him to see exactly. My mother's father. All right. Tamer Abbasi be'enai frek there's a grace of kasha by me. Shrei be'emes eftiach HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Abeisenu Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov she'itin l'hem Eretz Yisrael. It says, what's our raya? The raya was that it says, Asher nishba Hashem l'Abeisechem l'osis lahem. Lahem is to them. Who's them? The Abbas. Lechem doesn't mean you that I'm talking to, but lehem to them, those that I promised already Eretz Yisrael, that they're going to be, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give them chayim in their. So Tem Rabbasi Beinai Sharei be'emes Eftech HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Abeisenu Avram Yitzchak Yaakov she'itin l'hem Eretz Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was already mavtiach our forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that they're going to get Eretz Yisrael, like the pasuk says, Kes Kol Haaretz Asher Atar Roy L'Chad Nenel Zaracha. Right? It says. Aki Moses Brisi, Beini Ubeina, Beincha, and the Satil Chol Zaracha, Acharecha, Zeretz Begurecha, V'Skalav Tzkanan. Right? And Kahena, tons of psukim that go on and on about the Haftachas Eretz Yisrael to the Avos and to Klal Yisrael and to everybody. So why is this a raya to anything? It's all part of the Haftacha. The Haftacha doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be Tchias HaMesim. The Haftacha means that everybody's going to get, that ultimately everyone's going to get Eretz Yisrael. Right? And all the other Haftachas that are said to Yitzchak and Yaakov also says L'chol Zarecha. So frek the Beersheva, Im Kain, my kushya lechem loy namar elo lechem loy namar elo lehem. Ha loy shabik siv lehem. Makes a lot of sense, right? Lehem, to them, because even if we're not talking about Tchias HaMesim, right? This fact that there's a Haftacha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving L'chol Uzaracha Eretz Yisrael, meaning to you, to the Avos, and to the descendants of the Avos Eretz Yisrael, so that's what Lehem is referring to. Lehem is not referring to dead people becoming alive necessarily. Lehem is referring to the people that got the original Haftacha, that it's going to be to them and to their descendants. So it's going to be to their descendants. That's part of the Haftacha. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get Tchias HaMesim. Especially Kefi, what the Gemara says later on in Kufir Aleph, Sheba HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lemer Le'Moshe Chaval L'Avdim Le'Mishkat Mishtakin. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe that he wants to bring back give the things back to the Avos. Sharei Hakimaisi is Brisi Itam Lotzis Lam Esaretz Canaan. And when Avram wanted to bury Sarah and couldn't find the kever until he spent a lot of money, And Yitzchak had his issues with the Be'eros. And Yaakov, Pasuk says, Vayikan eschelkas asad l'intars Allah. He also had to spend money to buy a piece of land in Eretz Yisrael. So then, all these psukim are showing us that, all the others had issues with settling in Eretz Yisrael, and they couldn't be, it wasn't miyusha. It wasn't good. Right? First, Ephraim tells Avram, he was a real good car salesman, Ephraim, He tells him, yeah, it's going to be very good here for free, sure. By the time he turns around, it's 400, Abba Meir's Kesef Arv'Lasaycher, right? Yitzchak has issue with the Be'eros. They stuffed it up, and he unstuffed it, and they stuffed it up, a bunch of yeshiva bachrim going on over there, pushed him, right? Yaakov also says, and the point of all these things were, the nisyanis for the Abbas were to see how loyal they're going to be to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Right? That they weren't mahar after HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's why the pasuk has to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give the Avos to them. He's going to give Eretz Yisrael to the Avos. Right? What was the Nisayan? The Ikar Nisayan was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeps on telling him again and again that you're going to get Eretz Yisrael, you're going to get Eretz Yisrael, you're going to get Eretz Yisrael. And everything that happens just makes it more and more and more obvious and more probable that he's not going to get Eretz Yisrael. And the others don't say a word. They didn't say anything after HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem told me they're going to get Eretz Yisrael, and he's playing games with me. Like, none of that business. They said, this is all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not an issue. So he explains more the pshat. He says like this: that if the pshat is that what's this business of the Avos being mahara? Why are we giving a shvach to the Avos? Why are we praising the Avos that they have such stark amun in the Rebbeinu Shalom that they didn't think twice about all these games, so to speak, that HaKadosh Baruch was playing with them? What's the difference? So maybe my children are going to get it without the games, right? But from the fact that we see that HaKadosh Baruch was playing games with them, so to speak, and they never had any taina, they didn't even think of any taina under Rebbeinu Shalom. So it's doch a raya that the Avos themselves are going to get Eretz Yisrael. It's not just for Lazaracha Acharecha. It's going to be for them also. It's going to be Lachem Ulazarachem. So Lachem is referring to the Avos, not just to Lachem, to the people in front of you. Lachem means to them, to the Avos and to the Banim. The Avos are not alive now. They're going to be Zoichet to Tchias HaMeisim. That's the ride that there's going to be Tchias HaMeisim. Because of Lahem and not because of Lachem. That's what the pasuk has to say Lahem, to include the Avos that you never would have thought that the Avos would have gotten Eretz Yisrael. In all probability, they wouldn't have gotten it. Elavos, that's what the pasuk says Lahem, to them, to the Avos. Let the Avos children get it. Right?
How would that be?
Why is it mad for the Avos?
Lahem.
L'man yirbu yemechem v'imei al hadoma shenishba lavei seichem lo says to who is the original haftacha to? The pasuk is going back to the original haftacha. Who's the original haftacha to? The original haftacha is to the Avos.
So Avos and their kids.
Right, 100%. 100% that the haftacha was to the Avos.
What's haftacha?
Promise. What were you saying?
No, I'm saying Lahem. First of all, why can't Lahem be going on the Benechem in the pasuk?
Because go back to the whole pasuk. Man yirbu yemechem v'imei. It's really not even going on all of that. It's going Asher nishba laveiseichem lo says that Hashem made a shvuah laveiseichem to give to them, to those who He made the shvuah to. Who did He make the shvuah to? To them and to the zarachem acharechem.
I'm not having a discussion. He's saying that even though it says Lahem, which sounds like the Avos, but why can't Lahem mean also Lazarachem?
Right. No. That's not what he's asking. He's asking like this. The pasuk says all these psukim that there was this haftacha to the Avos, right? But then he said like this, that there's a Gemara that says, meaning his kash really is, what's the big deal if the Avos don't get it? If their children are going to get it, so what do you care, right? But we have this Gemara that says that al-af, all the nisyanis that the others had, the af al-pikain, they never were mahar after HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? So then, they're going to get, they themselves are ultimately going to get Eretz Yisrael. That's what the Gemara says over there in Kufyat Aleph. That they themselves are ultimately going to get Eretz Yisrael. So then, if they themselves are going to get Eretz Yisrael, when? How? They're not alive, right? So then that's why it's lehem. That's why it's coming from lehem to them, to the others themselves. They themselves are going to get Eretz Yisrael. You don't like it?
No, I'm not coming. What was his? That's his territory now. What's
right?
How do you start with his kasha?
I mean, what's the tzad that they weren't going to get Eretz Yisrael? The Psukim all these parashiyos, so Lech Lecha Vayerech, Ha'isera told us, it's all about that. The Haftach, all these parashiyos are the Haftach that they're going to get Eretz Yisrael. So what's the tzad that the others aren't going to get Eretz Yisrael? HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a shvur. What's the tzad now? Meaning, what's the raya that this is talking about Tchias HaMesim? This pasuk is talking about the Haftach that the others are going to get Eretz Yisrael, or their children. I mean, it's not specifically to the others themselves. Maybe it's just to their children.
So how do you read the pasuk?
No, so that's why he explains it through the other Gemara.
It's like a beer noisef, like it sounds like he didn't really have a kasha.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of fine. So that's this Nakuda. Before we go weiter, I just want to point out two different Gemaras. First Gemara is in Brachas, obviously. Where else would a good Gemara be, right? So it's just on this pasuk. I figured it's interesting to tell it soon. So Gemara is in Brachas Tafches. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. They said to Rabbi Yochanan, I mean, they asked Rabbi Yochanan, Ika Savi beBavel, are there Zaydis in Bavel? Meaning, are there Zakein and Talmidei Chacham, good Yidden that live there? Tama, so he wondered. Tama v'Omar, he said, "L'man yirbu yimechem v'mei b'neichav alo adama ksiv, av v'chutz la'aretz loy." Maybe the only place where people are going to have arichas yamim is going to be in Eretz Yisrael, not in Bavel, because it says, "L'man yirbu yimechem alo adama ksiv." Adama is Eretz Yisrael, not anywhere else. Kevin, that make it tasty that they're going to have life. Okay. So maybe they're not going to have life. Meaning that maybe they're not dobuk b'sharish hachayim. I think that's if they understand the question. Kevin the Amrilei, once they told him, mekadmi machashki lebei knishta, they go to the shul early in the morning and they stay late at night. Omar hainu da hanilu. That's why we could say the Amr B'Shu ben Levi lebnei kedimu v'achshichu v'alu lebei knishta ki heichi the torchu chayei. Just like Rabbi Shua ben Levi told his children that you should wake up early and should stay late in the shul, in the Beit Knishta, ki heichi the torchu chayei, that you should have arichas yom. Torchu is lashon of arichos, of lengthening the days. So those who spend their days in shul, they have a lengthening of the days. And there's the Maral in the Siv HaVoida goes on by arichos about this, of how a Beis Knesses, a Mokom of Tefillah, how Tefillah gives chiyus. And the Iker Dveikus that we have in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in a sense, is through Tefillah. I mean, there's Dveikus in Torah, one Mahalach, and then there's Dveikus of Tefillah, which is Avodah, which is different Mahalach. Right? Tefillah is the Lashon of Tefillin. Right? If you look in the Pasuk by Naftulei, Lekim Naftalti, the Lashon of Chibur. So that's Tefillah is the Chibur. The essence of Tefillah is to have Dveikus in the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the Maral brings a medrash that I think it's a Yalkut. He brings that there was a very old lady that she said that she doesn't want to. She's very old and she doesn't want to. She has no more cheshik to live. So the Tana asked her, Rav Yetzi Meir asked her, why do you live to be so old? She had no friends anymore; they're all dead. And my great grandmother told my wife like a year or two ago, she had no more friends; they're all dead. So he asked her, "My mezachisa for such a richas yamim?" So she said, "I daven every day in shul." So he tells her, so if that's what's causing you arichas yamim, so if you stop that, then there's going to be no more. Then there's going to be no more chiyus, because you're cutting yourself off from the sharish chiyus. So she did that, and then she died a day or two later, whatever. Then the cops, the Pesachim will ask me, how could you do that? How can a person do something that's going to be goyrim? That's going to be goyrim. So I can't try my say, we're not getting into that now. It's a fascinating discussion. But al koponim, we see from here klar that the Nakuda of a Beis Knesses of a shul the Medrash over there speaks out clear that the reason why a shul is in the Kor HaChaim is because of the pasuk of Atam Adveikim Hashem Elokeichem Chaim Kulchem Hayom. So Chlam, so we say this lashon in Yom Kippur davening, so I wanted the matzah for to point out this nakuda. V'nemar ki vi yirbu yamecha v'yisifu l'chashon le'eschayim v'chayim tovim tichtavenu Elokim Chaim kasvenu b'sefer HaChaim. Right? We're asking that Hashem should inscribe us in the book of life. Kakosov ve'atam adveikim b'Hashem Elokeichem Chaim Kulchem Hayom. As it is written, you who cling to Hashem, your God, you are alive, all of you today. The way we're going to get to the L'chaim Tevim Tichtavenu, Elikim L'chaim Kosvenu B'Sefer HaChaim, is by going to the place where, by going to do things that are going to cause us to be davuk in the Rebbeinu Shalom, to get the chiyus that we need, to have the life that we need. And that's going to be coming from Torah and Tefillah, V'ikr, because that's where we have Arichas Yom. So that's what it says here in the Gemara, that the Mekadmi Mechashvil Beknishta Gehechet the Torah Chaya. That's in terms of davening. In terms of Torah, we know also that the Torah also gives Arichas Yom, right? So we have a Gemara here, Ksubis Kuf Yudal from our base. Omer Abel Lozar, Ameh HaArotzois Einam Chaim. The Amiratzim, they have no life. Shenemar, the pasuk says, Mesim Bal Yichyu. What's this pasuk? Mesim Bal Yichyu, Rufam Bal Yokumu Lechen Pekarat Vatashmidim et Abid Kol Zeichalom. That they're going to be totally destroyed. Not going to have shaykhs to any kind of chiyus. Rashi says, Rufam Bal Yokum. Oh, this is the next part of the pasuk. Tanya Nami Yochel Rasul in Braisa. Mesim Bal Yichyu. That the Mesim are not going to get alive. Yochel Akol. So maybe that's referring to everybody. Talmud Lemar Rufam Bal Yokumu. A person who loosens himself up from learning Torah, so then he's not going to get chiyus. So he says, maybe you're not saying Pshat in the pasuk correctly. He's dashing another pasuk. This is a familiar pasuk. It's the Gemara by us, but this pasuk, this was the raya that Rabbi Gamliel brought from Nevi'im that Minan Tchias HaMesim and Atar, Minan Shakash Baruch Hu Mechayim Mesim. The second pasuk was Yichyu Meisechen Avelosi Yukumenu Kitzav Ranu Sheichne Over Kital Eretz Talach Eretz Rufam Tapil. Right? So the Gemara here in Ksubis brings the same pasuk to teach us that Ameratzos Enim Chayim. That Dafka those that are Davik and Torah, they're going to be the ones that are going to be Zeichet to Tchias HaMesim. Dichsiv Kital Eretz Talach Eretz Rufam Tapil Kol HaMishtamish Ba'or Torah. Anybody that gets involved with the light of Torah or Torah Mechayev, the Torah keeps him alive. Kol she'en mishtamish ba'or Torah, somebody doesn't chabarayin in the or Torah, ein or Torah Mechayev. So the Torah is not going to give him life because he doesn't have shaykhs to the Torah. Kevin the Chazid commit stars, he saw that he was pained by this. He was like feeling bad for the people that don't get a chance to learn, that never got a chance to learn, that they're amiratzim. So they're never going to have the schus of the Torah that's being mechayah them. Amalei Rebbe matzasi lan takonim min Torah. I found them a takon. Why? Min Torah, because the pasuk says Atam azveikim b'Hashem l'keichem chaim kulchem hayeh. That's our pasuk that we're bringing now. That those that are davuk in Hashem l'keichem, that they're going to live. V'ekti Gemara v'chi efshel zvukei b'shchina. Could a person attach himself to the shchina? V'oksiv ki Hashem l'keicha eish oichla. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a fire. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not a physical being altogether, but we can't be with Davik. How could it sounds like he's understanding it almost in a physical sense? How could we be Davik in the Rebbeinu Shalom? Elo kolamasi bitel Talmid Chacham. Somebody marries his daughter, offers her Talmid Chacham. Oisa pragmatil Talmid Chacham. Somebody does business with Talmid Chacham. V'mahana Talmid Chacham min achasav. And a person who allows Talmid Chacham to use his things. Ma'ilalav akasav kilu medabik b'shchina. It's as if the pasuk considers it as if he's davik in the shchina. And similarly, we have a similar idea that it says la'avas Hashem l'kechel l'davka bay. So another pasuk is a chiyuv l'davka bay, which means to be davik in the midas that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is noyik. And v'chiyavshel l'odom l'davik b'shchina is a shaykh for a person to attach himself to the shchina. Elo kol amasi bitel Talmid Chacham v'yisa pragmatil Talmid Chachamim v'mahana Talmid Chachamim nachotz ma'ilalav akasav kilu l'davik b'shchina. So again, if a person doesn't have a chance to learn Torah himself, he shouldn't give up hope, and all is not lost for him, because he could still be davuk. He could still be davuk in Torah himself. So a few things come to mind when we say this, because Lamaisa, if you look in the beginning of Pirkei Rebbe Lezer, right, it says that Rebbe Lezer was plowing in the field. Rebbe Lezer ben Hurkadus was plowing to his father in the field, and he started crying. So his father thought that maybe he was crying because it was too hard for him to plow there. Maybe he should go plow somewhere else. So he told him, if you go plow there, it's softer ground. So he says, nothing to do with the ground. I want to go learn Torah. He says, stop kidding around. You're 28 years old. The Hasash Kain Levin. Right? There's no chance you're going to get accepted to any yeshiva anyways. You're 28. You're an old bachelor. It's not going to help. Get married. And in like 3 or 4 years, you send your kid to, a year after you have a kid, you get married. A year later, you have a kid. 3 or 4 years later, you send him to playgroup, and he'll start from Aleph base. What you already lost your chance, right? But he didn't like this, his father's thing, and he went to yeshiva anyway. Ultimately, he went to yeshiva. It wasn't right then, but it was a week or two later, and the whole story. And that's basically how he became Rebbe Lezer ben Hurkadus, because he didn't take his father's advice. He went to learn by Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Yisrael. The whole story of the first 2 prakim in Pirkei Rebbe Lezer goes through a great detailed depiction of exactly what happened with Rebbe Lezer ben Hurkadus. And he said he learned 1 halach every day, 2 halachas every day. The Rosh Hashiva appointed somebody to teach him, because he wasn't on the level of anybody. Guy came from he was a farmer, he was a hick, he gave gunish. So it sounded like he was shaykh to Yiddishkeit, but what? Like from Kansas type. Al Kopanim, his father was Mother Hana. His father said he can't have any Hana from him. Fine. The signs going up all around town that a new Maggid Shir is giving a Shir Klali, all are invited. And they have this big, huge auditorium, thousands of seats set up, and this younger man comes in. Who's this younger man? It's Rebbe Lezer ben Hurkadus. Hurkadus came to the Shir, he wanted to see the Hak, what's going on. Seen the Rosh Hashiva and the rabbi, very fancy, check it out. Comes in, it's his son. It was Ma'adam. I said, if I would have known that this was my son, I never would have said anything to him. Right? And Shtei Dalton that his face was Gilapide Eish, and there was like fire coming out of his face. It was more the Gemaimid of the Maseres HaTorah that Rebbe Lezer was doing, but it's coming from his avodah of persevering or wanting to go learn Torah Hagam that people were putting him off very stark. As far as father was right, I think. In our minds, I think we would go with the father, with what the father is saying, that you're 28, you're ready. Somebody told me, he said, this guy started learning later on in life. Somebody asked him, so many years later, how you still in learning? He said, it's not true. It's not so many years later. I may be older than everybody else in these measures, but Lamais, I only started 15 years after everybody else. This is Shkein Raya, right? The guy started learning when he was much older than everybody. So he was still in this measure. So the guy said, you're so old already, move on. Most guys your age aren't here anymore. Most guys in his age moved on already. So how come we don't move on? He said, I just started later. So at the beginning of my life, he fooled around, and he started learning very serious, and then, So that's it. That's the story of people that are very, very stark about it, that they want to go and they take it very seriously. And then there's another Nakud over here that the Gemara says to, there's still hope that a Talmid Chacham, by hanging around Talmidei Chachamim, by getting to know Talmidei Chachamim, by being Mahan Talmidei Chachamim and Achasav, doing business with them, it's very simple. My father always say, you see the Rashiva, you see the Pinchas, take the coat and hang it up, help them with the coat, help them with the hat, hold the door for him. That's also helping a Talmid Chacham. It's going to be part of this. The Gemara's question was, is it possible to be davik in the Shechina? So what do? You help Talmidei Chachamim. You allow you give a Rav or a Rebbe, you give him a ride. That's Mahan Talmidei Chachamim and Achasav, right? And for Kert, you have a chance to spend time with the Talmid Chacham, ask him your questions, ask him what's on your mind, right? I'm saying the story for Kert, Moshe Shapiro was on a bus, and somebody asked, saying your mind, it's Adam Gadol. So he sees the Moshe Shapiro and wants to ask him all his, it was all his questions that he had the last couple of weeks. So Moshe told him that just because you see Adam Gadol doesn't mean that you could just, Moshe wasn't he was able to give the cold shoulder to people sometimes, and he did. He was known for that.
Wasn't there a whole idea behind that? That he could have gotten a ride, but he didn't. He definitely didn't want to get a ride. He definitely didn't want to get a ride because then he would have to spend time with the person in the car.
Right, I think they said that also.
So he went on the bus, and then this guy came over.
I don't know if it was that time, but Derek Call took public, a lot of times took public transportation. Scratched into Sant, I saw a mice about him that somebody one time asked him, how could it be that Kosh Baruch Hu brought about the Churban in Europe? How's the Shai? He was waiting by a bus. So I didn't even think Ramesha was curious the question. So he told somebody afterwards, the pshat is, if he thinks I could answer him in such a short time, that I'll already have answered him by the time the bus comes, Vice says he's not serious about the questions, then I don't have to enter the discussion with him. It's not something, it's a serious question. It's you have to answer such a question with Kavod Reish. To answer such a question on a bus stop, when you go to shop, you're shopping around for tourists, for answers. You're not ready to take it seriously yet. But I want to share a word that says like this. The Mishnah state at the end of Uktzin, Bavus the Mishnah, says that Osra Kosh Baruch Hu lahanchil l'chol tzadik v'tzadik shloish mei v'asara elomois. Right? It says that that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give every tzaddik. It says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give every tzaddik 310 elomois. Right? So the question is, the diuk in Lashon HaMishnah is that what's the chol tzadik v'tzadik? Also, Kosh Baruch Hu lahanchil l'chol tzadik. What's the chol tzadik v'tzadik? So the teretz is, the answer is that the pshat is that there were people who in their lifetime, maybe they weren't zeicha to be Talmidei Chacham themselves, but they were able to be dovuk in Talmidei Chacham. They're able to connect themselves to Talmidei Chacham. Whether that means, hosting an Adam Gadol, whether that just means helping him with, spending time around Talmidei Chacham is very, very helpful in Bazeu Baba, in this world and the next world. So, steht in Chazal that when the neshama of a tzaddik goes to Gan Eden, so he goes through Gehenna, and he could take certain people out.
Pulls out the numbers by the case.
No, but the point is that Dafka, the people that were doubled to this Talmud Chacham, to this tzaddik in his lifetime, so that's part of the people that he's going to schlep out. Yeah. The Gemara says that, Risham, Afilu, Pischan, Shal Gehenna, Meinum, Chezim, B'tshuva, right? So I saw a pshat, that pshat is, this guy is such a balgaiva, he thinks he's going to be that tzaddik, that they're going to schlep him through Gehenna to pull out all the Rishon that are in there, that their time is up now. So that's a pshat in L'han Chol Tzadik V'Tzadik. I mean, it's definitely a good thing to know and a good thing to get used to. I'm saying the Gemara says in Brachos and Daf Zayin Amud Beis that the Gedei L'Shimush Shel Teri Yosem Limuda, right? That the Shimush Chachamim is greater than learning. What does it mean? It's greater than learning. So a lot of times it's difficult to know. Now, I just read this Ma'aseh this week. What? Somebody was by the Birkas Avram Erlanger, and he said he was Bar Baruch Ber. So he asked him, how did Baruch Ber do until Yadayim? He said he didn't know. So he got upset. What do you mean you don't know? You could see Baruch Ber watching until Yadayim to see all his dikdukim b'halacha. There's so much to pick up over there. It's kedai. It's worth your time to pay attention to such a thing, right? So that's what Shimush Chachamim means. Shimush Chachamim means, if you look at Rashi says to be able to be mefalpul in the svaros, to be miyashav the kashas, right? But that means that you're spending time handling with the Talmidei Chachamim to be able to get to see how they act outside the Bismedrash also. I mean, that's really, there's much more context in halacha and in hashkafa and in avodah in so many different ways when you see somebody, not just in Bismedrash, because in Bismedrash everybody's a masmid, you know what I'm saying? When you see a guy, how's he noig Shabbos Uday? How's he noig Stamazeh when he's taking it easy? Like there were people who would want to go visit how the Gedolim go on vacation. It was something else. There's something there to see. Something to chaper in. But that's Shimush Chachamim, to be able to. And the point of Shimush Chachamim is that you're being davak b'shchina. The highest level of shchina that we have is our Talmidei Chachamim. They say from Baruch Ber that the pasuk says that say it in Slichas Al tashluchenim milfanech v'ruach kodesh al tikach mimenu. Right? What's ruach kodesh? You have ruach kodesh. Haven't you have ruach kodesh? We don't have ruach kodesh. The closest thing that we do have to ruach kodesh is coming from the Torah, coming from the Talmidei Chacham. It may not be 100% ruach kodesh, whatever it is. Some of them do, right? Maybe, could be. I don't know, but that's the closest thing that we have to ruach kodesh is coming from the Talmidei Chacham. Trying to think there's anything else on this topic. Saying there are many other Gemaras with different nuschois that there's another Gemara that somebody who's Mahana Talmid Chacham and Achasim is Ki'ilu Hikriv Tmidin, and somebody brings a Kala maybe Darin to Gemara Ksubis on Kofhei, Kala maybe Darin La Talmid Chacham is Ki'ilu Hikriv Bikurim. There's another Gemara. What?
What did you say? Brings what?
Kala maybe Darin La Talmid Chacham is Ki'ilu Hikriv Bikurim. What's a Darin? Present. All right, somebody gives something by Chavadik to Talmid Chacham as if she's bringing Bikurim.
That's Hebrew?
Yeah.
Darin is really?
A Darin is, yeah. It's Lashon Kodesh probably. I don't know if it's Hebrew. But we have another Gemara that also I think Mahana Talmid Chacham and Achasav is Ki'ilu, he's Menasech Yayin al Gabe Mizbeach, Memalik Grenim Shel Talmidei Chacham Yayin. There's all these different Lashonos of I mean, each one obviously means something else. They definitely don't all mean the same thing. But the point is that this is the shaykhis. This is the closest shaykhis that we can get to the Shechina. So what it means, helping a Talmid Chacham with his coat, giving him a ride, even talking to him. Talking to him, you're going to be able to get something from him. Because you get the answer to the question, but you get to interact with him. It's even higher level. There's something there too. But I think we go weiter. Yeah, let's start the next Gemara. Kopanim. 11 lines down the wide line. Shalu Raimim es Rishu ben Chananya minayin shakosh baruch hu mechaya mesim v'yodeya mar she'osid liyos. So the Raimim, the Romans, after Rishu ben Chananya, they added something to the question that the Gemara didn't ask yet until now. So how do you know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mechaya Mesim? And how does HaKadosh Baruch Hu know what's Osid Liyos? So before we even go right in the Gemara, let's just say two things. Rabbi Shua ben Chananya used to be around by the Romans. They used to handle with them, and he used to give them answers to a lot of the philosophical questions. We know that from this Gemara and from other places in Sanhedrin, and Daf Lamed Ches, Lamed Tes. How do you know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mechaya Mesim? And how do you know what HaKadosh and how do you know v'yodeya Masha Osid Liyos? Well, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not limited by time, and we've been talking about this, we mentioned this a lot of times, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not limited by time. He is of our hoive and Osid all at once. So Mamela, it's not like he needs to, see, for us, we may know something what's going to happen in the future, and we may remember something that happened back in the day. That's because we're limited by time. So we're not in the past, and we're not in the future, we're in the present. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not like that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not limited in that way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is of our hoiv and asad all at the same time. And even l'mayla from that. Right? So it's not really a question. If you believe in Hashem, that he's a Kol Yaakov. What?
Is it connection between these questions, or just like two random questions?
So that's what we're going to see. What's the shaykhis over here?
What's Masha Osid Liyos?
How does HaKadosh Baruch Hu know the future? Omar Lahu, he said to them, Tarvayu min amikra hazeh. Going back to a drasha that we heard already a few times. I'm going to answer both of these questions from the same pasuk. Tarvayu min amikra hazeh. They both learned that from this pasuk. Shenemar, pasuk that we're familiar with, right from this Gemara. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe hincha sheichev b'mabesecha v'kom ha'om hazeh b'zona. That the pasuk says that after Moshe Rabbeinu is going to leave this world, he'll become a Tchias HaMesim. And the fact that the pasuk continues that v'kama om hazeh b'zona achrei elhei nechar haaretz is muchach that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what's going to be. Because how does HaKadosh Baruch Hu know what's going to be after Moshe Rabbeinu passes away that the Yidden are going to end up doing Avodah Zarah? Right? So it's interesting. Because if you ask certain people questions, not like if they can, not necessarily predicting the future, but people, as a general rule, have a specific pattern of life. Right? So especially like people that are very, very programmed that have the same seder every single day. right? So, I can tell you, and you probably know also, certain people who you will know will be by Shacharis tomorrow no matter what, right? And you know that at 9:30, certain people always walk into the Medrash, right? That's not necessarily predicting the future. It's fakir. It's because you know that they always do it. So you could just assume that they're going to continue doing it. There's no reason to assume that they won't. That's the Tariq and Advarim is like this. That Chacham Adaf Minavi is the pshat. So there's many pshatim to that, but if there's a certain chachma to chap, to know a person's patterns, to know how a person works, that's how he's going to go ahead in the future. And Nishnodem, it gets even better. Right? The Gemara says that Rabbi Lezer, who we were talking about before, Rabbi Lezer ben Horkenes, so the Gemara says by Rabbi Lezer, Shaloi Omar Dover Shaloi Shama Mipi Rabbi. He never said anything over that he didn't hear from his Rebbe. Okay, fine. Sounds like a Gevaldige Talmud. Sounds like a Gevaldige giving over the Masorah type of thing. Fine. But the Gemara also says that the Pirkei Rabbi Lezer says by this Ma'aseh, when he gave this year Klali that his father came to, it says that he said things that he said Chidushei Torah Shaloi Shamu from Miyayim Shenitna Torah. From Har Sinai, they never heard such Chidushei Torah. I thought he doesn't say things Shaloi Shama Mipi Rabbi, right? But the pshat is like this. The pshat is that's not necessarily that his Rebbe said, his Rebbe asked this kasha and his Rebbe answered that question. That's not what it means that a person says over something that he heard from his Rebbe, but he knows how his Rebbe thinks. He's in tune to the mahalach of thinking and the mahalach of learning that his Rebbe has. So even though his Rebbe could be never asked this question in his lifetime, right? But this is a spitz kind of question that my Rebbe would ask, right? That's the pshat. And he would never do anything, a kind of question that his Rebbe would never ask. He was always doing things that the kind of questions and Torahs and Terutzim are things that his Rebbe would say. It says very much along the lines of this concept of Chacham Adaf Minavi, if you want to call it that, where that a person is able to, he's not necessarily Yodea Asid. He doesn't know what's going to be in the future. Am I supposed to know what's going to be in 50 years from now? I have no clue. There's no way to know. I don't know if anybody knows. Right? We're not supposed to know, really. It's supposed to be we're supposed to be curious about it. Right? But there's a certain cheshbon of understanding how people work and how people go about doing things that we could just assume that this is what they're going to be like. Right? There's a vart like this. It says in the Medrash, I never saw this Medrash inside, but the Medrash says like this, that Shlomo HaMelech was chacham mikol adam. Shlomo HaMelech was the wisest person that ever lived. Right? And they say there's a Medrash that says afilu min hashaitim. He was smarter than even the shaitim. Yeah, no kidding. Right? Okay, maybe. Right. So I heard a few different pshatim in this, but one of the pshatim that I heard was like this. A shaita, he always knows what's right. You can't convince him out of it. This guy's total shaita, right? He has his mahalach. He sold. Goodbye. Right. Shlomo HaMelech was able to convince even the most convinced shaita out of his shaitakite. That's Kenzai. I don't know that we know if he did or if he didn't, but it's Kenzai, right? But Dave Ribner said over from his father, who was a psychologist, and his name is Shlomo.
You're probably the first person that ever said that sentence. Dave Ribner said from his father.
And so he says like this. So he says, what does it mean that he was a chacham afilu min hashaitim? Pshat is when you have a guy who's totally out of whack, right? So there's no seder to his life. There's no cheshbon and there's no seder to how he's noyig in his life. One day he's going to wake up, the next day he's going to sleep for a week straight. And, there's no cheshbon to the shigoin and to the mishigazim that these people have because they're totally out of touch. And we're not in their realm of existence. They're in their own world, in Gansen, right? Where Shlomo HaMelech was able to find the patterns and the cheshbonis of how these people worked, to be able to maybe tell them, maybe Samzai to figure it out. But Al that's what he said. And Rav Gustmud was mishabeach this pshat. It's a good psychology pshat, yeah.
Insanity and it's like the thin line between insanity and genius.
Usually, yeah.
No connection.
Maybe he's a misunderstood genius, or maybe he's a perfectly understood idiot.
Right. Very well said. Exactly. There's a lot of research on this, and it's a very interesting topic. Vidilma, in fact, the Gemara. Maybe so the Romans went back to the Tain on this pasuk that we mentioned before already. Maybe it means that the nation is going to rise up and do avodah zarah, right? He said, you should hold on to at least half the answer. The idea I mean, even if you're not going to agree to me that this pasuk is talking about Tchiyas HaMeisim and this pasuk is going to be a raya to Tchiyas HaMeisim in the Torah, but at least the fact that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is that without Moshe Rabbeinu they're going to go to avodah zarah, that's a good raya, right? Itmar Nami. So we also have a brayso Amar Rabbi Yechon Mishum B'Yachai Minen Shakadosh Baruch Hu Mechai Meisim V'Idei Mashas Eliyos Shenamar Hincha Sheichem Avisecha V'Kamam Azav Zanar Chelenecha, which we mentioned already a few times, that this is going to be a raya to Tchiyas HaMeisim in the Torah and Yidei Mashas Eliyos, right? So he said, you don't have to agree with everything I say, but at least you should take half. So they bring a pshat like this. Why do these two? What's the cheshbon of putting these two questions together? Yeah. So the question, it's not such a bad question. Maybe think about it this way: if Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring everybody back to life anyways, so what do you need to die for? If Hakadosh Baruch Hu knows that it's osed lichos, osed lahakris kol hameisim, right? So just let everybody live till then. Why do you have to make them dead and then bring them back to life?
It's not how the world works. Why? What do you mean?
Not enough food in the world.
What does that mean? Why is there anything? Well, I'm not having a kasha.
It's not a kasha.
That's how it is.
What do you mean that's how it is? Why does his question is, why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do it this way?
Why do you have 2 eyes on it, 30 eyes? Like, I don't know. What? Like, why?
Maybe you're asking a valid question. Who said you're asking a stupid question now?
You can ask on anything. No, why does Shem do that? Well,
There's a cheshbon to it.
Yeah, okay.
So why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do it this? Meaning, we're explaining why they ask these two questions together.
Right.
Of why Minayin HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mechayim Meisim and Minayin Shas HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Minayin that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Yidei Mashas Eliyos, right? So as I the Divrei Shol. The Divrei Shol is the Yosef Shol, the Baal Shol Meshiv. I think they say nobody wrote as many Haskamas as far as he did. And his Tkufa lived in the 1800s, and his Tkufa he mostly wrote, I think they say 300, 400 more Haskamas as far. And that Tkufa in Mechaber Svarim, he wrote, many Svarim. He was a tremendous Talmid Chacham. He was a Rav, he was a Paisik, and he was very sought after. His Shel Meshiv Chuvas, you're looking for interesting Chuvas to look at. It's good to look into there every now and then. I think recently they reprinted it. Yeah, but that's the question. That's what he was trying to say.
And how come now it was Trevor Minamikra and not terrorism type?
Right, so again, it's going back to what we said before, that Rabbi Gamliel had to give this agenda and had to answer them this way because he wanted to bring something out from the Torah that the Torah shows this idea. And he wanted to bring out that point from Nevi'im on the level of what Nevi'im represent. And he wanted to answer that from the level of what Ksuvim represent. And not necessarily was a Rishu ben Chananya. Rishu ben Chananya didn't feel the need to do that. It's a different avodah in the way he's responding to the question. Again, I'm being very vague. I'm not exactly explaining it, but it can feel what we said. That's how we'll say it over. Fine. Let's see if any Rashi's here. So Rashi hincha sheichem ma v'sech v'kam eretchiyas hamesim. If they're going to get up, so then if Moshe Rabbeinu is going to get up, so then that's going to be tchiyas hamesim. Ha'om hazeh b'zona harei mashas edliyos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows mashas edliyos. Palga b'yodcha d'mehai kra navka d'yidei masha asid. That from this pasuk we can see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what's going to be in the future. What's the tzadi over here? B'yadaychu. Palga b'yadecha b'yadaychu.
What is it, like half a ham?
Half in your hand. Nekoit miyapalga b'yadaychu. Should take at least half of this in your hand. I mean, you should accept at least half my answer, right? Because he asked him 2 questions. So why didn't he tell him pick one? Why did he say take half? Because he still wanted to give them the choice to be able to believe in Tchiyas HaMeisim also. He wasn't writing them off in Ganson. I think tomorrow show something along these lines, right? Because if you just say take one of them, right? So you're telling the guy either pick to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what it's going to be, or pick Tchiyas HaMeisim. He didn't want to tell him that you're limited to one. He wanted him to be able to go with both. So right now you'll think about this answer. And then when you're up to When you have time to think about the other things, so then you'll think about Yidei Mashas Elias.
Well, if you answer one, did you answer the other one?
No. No, it's not that one's canceling out the other. He was just telling them, you can pick whichever one you want.
Right, but the way he connected the 62
Well,
questions.
why still don't believe anyone?
How do you know?
These
The
are
Romans.
So,
So how do you know?
Uncle is the Roman.
Right.
If you not after it was behind.
He's still Roman. Didn't come as Roman. He was a Jewish Roman.
The Gemara's not gonna call him Roman. He's gonna call him Yid.
Call him Garrett.
Or Garrett. I'm not gonna call him Roman.
Okay. Interessant. Fine. I think we'll stop here for the night. Mirza Shem, next week we'll go weiter, yeah?
Yeah.